for the next couple of segments, talk about a pretty extraordinary Saturday for us, as we got to travel to Crawford, Texas, to the ranch of former President George W. Bush. He was hosting his 7th annual Warriors 100K bike ride for wounded veterans. And this is the 7th time he's done it. When we had a chance to visit with the president several months ago at the golf tournament held for these wounded veterans, we had a chance to talk to him there. And it was mentioned that Junior was a big cyclist. And I do believe it was the president that brought up, hey, you got to come ride in my rally that I have for these wounded veterans on the ranch. And I think at the time I thought, well, that's a nice invite, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. But sure enough, we were contacted by the really friendly folks at the Bush Center that we would have an opportunity to do this several weeks back. And so Junior, as we rode down to be a part of this on Saturday, he knew ahead of time that you were going to get to ride with the president and these 53 wounded veterans, along with some sponsors around the ranch of President Bush. And you haven't done a lot of mountain biking before. You've done some, but this was a pretty new experience for you too, wasn't it?
Yeah, 99.9% of my cycling is done on a road bike, and I don't even have a mountain bike, so I called my buddy Kyle up at Plano Cycling and Fitness. That's the shop I've been going to for 20 years. Great folks up there. Told him what I was doing, and he said, absolutely, we'll set you up with a mountain bike. So they gave me one. I went and picked it up last Wednesday, so I had a couple of days to get used to it. It's a totally different animal. I could do a whole segment on how different it is from road biking, but it's still pedaling.
Yeah.
Still, I was a little out of my element. I didn't know what the ranch course was going to be like or anything, but I was really, really excited about it. So I picked up the bike. I did a couple of rides on some dirt trails and some Jeep roads on the latter part of last week, and I think I was good to go. But there were a couple of weird issues because I don't have mountain bike shoes or mountain bike pedals. So when I went for my first test ride, I just had regular tennis shoes on and platform pedals. I just told Kyle, put some platform pedals on there. Well, my feet were slipping all over the place. You know, they're used to being locked in on those pedals. So I came up with a ridiculous way to keep my feet on the pedals. I found some Velcro in my kitchen drawer.
This is so spare.
It's better than duct tape, I guess.
I put Velcro on the bottom of my shoes and the pads on the pedals, and that worked for about half the ride. It actually did work fairly well until the effort ripped off the Velcro, and then I was sliding around again. But, yeah, I was really excited about this.
Well, we were too, knowing that we were going to get to ride around the ranch. So we met up here at the state Saturday morning. We had to be there by 7 o'clock. Takes a couple hours to get there, so we had to leave here around 5 o'clock.
That part hurt.
We're used to that, though, right? That's our schedule.
Yeah,
but it was wake-up time.
It was just kind of an insult to have to do it on Saturday, but it was for this cause. It was the only thing that would have gotten me out of bed that early on a Saturday is either alcohol or a former president.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the latter was able to get you out of bed, maybe a little bit later than the two of us got out of bed, but we left at a decent time and made it to the ranch on time. And we knew we would have to go through security. We're in my truck. We threw Junior's bike in the back and drove down there. Very nice drive.
By the way, I'd never been to Crawford, Texas. Of course, I'd never been to the ranch, but I'd never been just west of Waco. Gordon, you said you took a road trip down there a couple of years ago.
Well, yeah, and I used to live in McGregor, which is around there. And I drove through there and drove by Crawford and drove by the Bush Ranch back then. And
okay,
of course
around that area.
But I was not allowed on the grounds
right.
At the time.
Because when you pull up, you do go through some heavy security, as we knew that would be the case. And I have to tell you that I knew there was nothing to find in my truck.
It just always makes you nervous.
It just makes you nervous.
And the Secret Service guys were really nice.
Really nice, yeah.
Really friendly.
Yeah.
And the first one just seemed real kind of casual, and then the second checkpoint looked like something out of East Berlin.
Yeah,
because it's at night, there are lights shining on us. There's an impediment. We don't want to get into too many specifics.
Right.
Right. But there's a roadblock, and that's the part that made you feel really nervous.
They come out with the dogs, the sniffing dogs.
And I told you guys I'd gone dove hunting a few weeks before, And I swore I checked that truck 10 times to make sure every shell was out of there. But then I just thought, man, maybe that dog will find one that I didn't see under the seat, but they didn't. So that was fine. And the Secret Service guys were really nice.
We kept waiting while they're searching the truck, one of them to say, "On the ground."
Right.
Spread eagle. And as they draw down on us because George has something in his truck.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've used that truck to take the bird dogs to gigs before. What did Pablo leave in the back seat?
Right.
I don't know.
You got to be worried about what musicians may tuck under the seat from time to time.
So I just started, no, I don't think so. But
Junior
anyway.
and I thought about pranking you, Giorgio, and just writing a note that was kind of scrawled, "I'm about to do something crazy."
Sign it with my name.
Yeah, sign it with your name, with a photocopy of your license.
Oh, man. Yeah, I thought about that. Maybe you guys had played a prank on me, but we made it by the checkpoints just fine, and then went to where, we got a little sidetracked. We went down one wrong dirt road.
I thought we were going to get shot then. We're in an unauthorized area.
We did go to the wrong area, and then we texted our friend Andrew, and he said, "Yeah, you're in the wrong place, and you come back this way." So we did, and basically we drove up and parked where there was several tents that were set up, and they were set up on this area that used to be President Bush's helipad there on the ranch. That was pretty cool. That's where Marine One, I guess, used to fly in, or at least a helicopter from a neighboring military base.
Yeah, that was like the heart of the ranch. Beautiful piece of property, by the way, and large, about 1,600 acres. And the helipad was very close to the house, and there was a little pond/small lake out behind it. So a really nice area right at the heart of the ranch. The house wasn't as giant as I thought it was going to be. It was pretty,
Yeah.
It was just a house.
It was a nice house, yeah.
It was a nice house, but it wasn't, I guess for whatever reason, I always think presidential ranch, it's going to be a mansion. But then I think about LBJ's ranch, and his house was pretty, average as well. It wasn't anything over the top.
So that was really cool. And then the Warriors arrived. To me, that was a great moment. They have the sponsors, people that put on the race, those who are friends of the Bush family, and people who work for the Bush Center who were putting this on. It takes a lot of people to do something like this. It's a big event, and they had caterers for breakfast and for lunch for the riders. But then when they arrived on the buses, and as they were exiting the buses, everyone that was not a veteran went over there and applauded for them, including us. And to me, that was a really cool moment. You could tell that made them feel that much more special to have applause like that as they got off the buses. And, some of them have sacrificed a lot for this country. All of them have. Some have sacrificed limbs. There was one young man who was missing 2 legs and an arm, and he had a special bike that had been outfitted for him. And he was right there riding. That was so inspiring to watch him get geared up before the race, and then later we would watch him ride. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was the guy that shamed me the most.
Yeah,
that he rode the mountain bike ride.
Yeah,
and he only has one appendage.
Yeah,
and he rode that whole thing.
Yeah, there was another guy who was missing a leg, and he did not have a prosthetic, but still rode the bike just with that one leg.
Pedaled with one leg.
That was amazing. So we're going up a fairly steep climb, and he comes blowing by everybody, and that one leg, which looked like Hercules' leg, is just churning, at 100 RPMs, and he is just blowing by everybody up that mountain.
Yeah, he was strong. And so the race started. We saw Junior get on his bike, and we were taking pictures of him and tweeted out. Gordo and I were on a gator with Andrew Kaufman of the Bush Center.
We were part of the press contingent.
We were part of the, there was probably 3 or 4 other gators that were riding around and would get ahead of the pack and take pictures as they would come through.
And by the way, there was an order to kind of observe in the pack. The president rode at the front with the warriors around him and behind him. And then behind the warriors were the media spares like me or the volunteers. There were a lot of great volunteers, really friendly folks, a lot of people from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And they were the ones wearing those red, white, and blue jerseys. And they were there to offer support or, anything that the Warriors might have needed. So we all kind of stayed behind them, as it should be.
It's a big place and a lot of intricate trails, too. Y'all ended up getting lost at one point, didn't you? The president didn't. He knew exactly where he was going. But for those who were back a ways, you had to really know where you were going, I guess.
Yeah, and I asked a couple of people about the trail system on the ranch. You know how many miles of trails there are? 43.
Ah, that makes sense.
And the woman that I was talking to, Pam was her name, and she's always in charge of the trails down there and keeping them up. And I said, so how many miles of trails? And she goes, 43. And then she smiled and she goes, always 43.
Yeah.
Even
no matter how many miles they add, it stays at 43.
We're going to call it 43. Well, yeah, these veterans are really impressive, and we got a chance to visit with one of them, Michael Rodriguez, who is a former Green Beret, 9 deployments over 21 years, and he suffered a number of head injuries. In fact, that left him with double vision. That's part of what he's been dealing with, along with post-traumatic stress syndrome and traumatic brain injury. We talked to him, though, the nicest guy, and just an example of America's finest.
So here we are. We're kind of at the halfway point of the W100K, the mountain bike ride. How long have you been doing this ride? Because this is an alumni ride, and how long have you been on the mountain bike?
So I was selected in 2014, and so I rode in 2014 and 2015, and then I rode last year at the alumni. Like one day they'll bring some alumni in. So I've been doing this since 2014.
This ride got a little fast, the first part there, especially through those rocks. I was having a tough time.
Yeah, well, you know, I know the boss is a pretty professional and a competitive guy, you know. So he anybody that comes out here thinking, oh man, he's 71 years old. No, this guy prepares, and he's maintained his professionalism, and he's going to come out here and he shows it, you know.
Plus, he's got home course advantage here.
No doubt. And I think he just put his number on his e-bike, so things are about to pick up, I'm sure.
What does it mean to you guys that a former president like this takes the time to do events like this for you?
Wow, you know, that's a hard question to answer, because it's humbling, it's an honor. You know, for those of us gotten to know him and get to spend as much time with him as we have is truly a special experience, because then we not only was our commander-in-chief, but we develop a special friendship. I mean, I can call the guy a friend, like legitimately call, and I'm not bragging or anything like that, but to get to know him as a man, as opposed to, you know, my commander-in-chief is very, very special, and he's very genuine. He's not doing this for any other reason. Him and Laura both have dedicated the rest of their lives to helping the veteran in the community, and that means a lot to us. You know, we loved him when he was office, and I love him more now. I mean, not that I didn't love him back then. It's kind of hard to say.
Right.
You know?
Are you guys like texting buddies? Like,
well, I'm fortunate that I actually, for Team 43, I'm the representative that sits on President Bush's Military Service Initiative Advisory Council. So I get to, and every day I think I'll be a policy advisor for my former commander-in-chief, but I actually get to spend some time, and it's really special for me to bring forth issues at the advisory council that only someone at my level would see, and him actually listen to and take heed and take action on.
And you're also one of the warriors that he's painted. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
The cover of the book, right?
Oh, that too. It's somewhat surreal. You know, I could use probably 50 adjectives to try and describe it, and it wouldn't even come close to, you know, what it really means to actually be painted. And I hadn't realized till he opened the exhibit, and he gave a private tour. I was there, and we had some big supporters there, and mine was one of the first ones he painted, you know, and I was just like, oh, I still don't know what to say. Mm-hmm. You know, it's somewhat surreal, and people ask, hey, sign it, and sign the book, and I'm like, I didn't paint it. It's not. It's an image of me. I feel kind of weird signing it because I don't want to take credit for his work, but it's special.
How long did you have to sit for the painting? When he did a painting of you, does he just do it from a photograph, or does he make you come in and get nude and a bowl of fruit?
Wow, no, we're not that close of friends. But what they do is they use stock footage from events like this, from the Warrior 100 and the Warrior Open. And the reason I know they do is because my portrait, the shirt I'm wearing, I remember having to buy a nice shirt for the event. I went to Men's Warehouse, it was on sale, and I bought it, and it ended up in the painting.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, hey, I don't know where that came from. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, enjoy the second half of the ride, and I know this is just a part of the weekend. You guys are out here, and you have dinners, and there's a lot going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a special event. You know, it really is, and it's just really hard to describe what it's like. You know, it's this is a big gathering of family.
Enjoy it, and we can't thank you enough for your service.
No, hey, thank you guys for coming out here and supporting as well. I really appreciate it. You know, and I wish your listeners could really experience this, and I'm sure you'll do a good job at explaining what really this experience is like.
You don't want want half of them out here anyway.
Oh, I mean, well, I don't know. I wish them the best.
That's Michael Rodriguez, really nice guy. And yes, as he mentioned, he's one of those that was painted by President Bush. By the way, this weekend is your final chance to see the Portraits of Courage exhibit at the Bush Center, and you can also meet some of these warriors when you go out there as well. I encourage you to do that because it's pretty cool, the painter that President Bush has become.
Yeah, and as he mentioned, this was an alumni ride. Normally, the Warrior 100K, they have about 15 or 20 wounded veterans. Well, this year, 53 of them, and all of them alumni. All of them had done the ride before, so it was really cool to see in the beginning when all the warriors arrive and they're standing around with their bikes, and then the president rides his bike over from his house, and Laura's walking alongside him, and then they stand there and they meet every single one of the veterans, and they hug them and they take a picture with them. And there was a lot of talking and handshaking and backslapping because there were so many veterans. So the ride was much bigger this year because it was an alumni ride, which made it special to be there.
Yeah, that was really cool to be there. And yes, leading the pack was President Bush himself, and we got a chance to talk to him after the ride, and you'll hear that next.